Hello everyone, welcome back to your favorite class, INST326. Alright, so this module, I'm going to warn you now, it's going to be pretty short because it's a very targeted module. There's really very few things we can showcase here, but at the same time, it's a very useful segment that we're doing, right? Um, so, what we're going to be talking about is something called regular expressions, right? You might also hear me call it as regex, right? That's another way, R-E-G-E-X, regular expressions, regex, right? And regex is pretty cool, right? Regex is basically a way to basically do definitive matching of certain things. And it's surprisingly useful in code because you always need to match certain things. For example, like validate a user's input, right? Match that they entered 5 numbers, right? 5 characters, right? If they entered a zip code, they did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Make sure that they entered 5 or that they didn't put any special characters, etc. Regex is a very powerful thing, right? So yeah, it's a very useful thing, but I will tell you, it's one of the most annoying things ever to actually work with. I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to expect you to remember like all the slash commands or everything, but like there's a website we'll use and that'll help us out a lot, and we'll go over it, right? All right, so let's hop right in, and I also have a story that I'm going to talk about. But anyway, so regular expressions. So regular expressions are essentially strings of text that are used in order to match characters in other bodies of text. Basically, the ability to use regex is, first of all, extremely powerful because you can basically do any combination of things, check for specific things in text, etc. And it's in every single programming language. Not every single, but most programming languages, like Java, Python, JavaScript. Uh, I know for a fact those have it. But regex is really nice because it's universal, right? It's not something that you need to go and customize for every single language. Every single language uses the same rules. So you can actually, it's like cross-platform, cross-language effectively. So it's very nice, right? So let's take a look at this, right? So here you're going to look at this and be like, what are you showing me? I just see gibberish, right? So there's this B, C, H, M, blah, blah, blah. What this actually matches with a bat, cat, hat, mat, all of these, right? So what this is saying is, hey, check for any character with B, C, H, or M, and then a P or a capital P, and then has a AT or OT, right? Or slash D, which matches with any number, and slash D5 slash D4, which basically says, like I was saying, a zip code, right? So you have to have between 5 and then a -4, right? Because, the extended zip code is that, but this is optional, right? And you might be like, okay, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what do I make of this? Well, we'll go into it, but luckily there's a website called Regex 101 where we can actually test this, okay? So let's keep going, right? So regular expressions basically have this syntax, right? So for example, you can type any string and it'll match exactly with that string. So if, for example, you type word, it'll do word. And then there's a slash D, which basically does any digit from 0 to 9, right? So number colon slash D would do number, and number 5 would be valid, right? Or any word character, any white space character, any tab, any character that is not a digit, any character except new line, any character any amount of times except new line, and then you can even have it escaping special characters, right? And then you can also have quantifiers. So what that means is, for example, you can have a plus, which says one or more of the item is stated before, right? Or you can have exactly X amount of times. So W exactly 3 times, right? Or match X to Y amount of times, right? So W 2 to 4 means you can have between 2 to 4 W's for it to be valid. Or you can have a 0 or more times, or 1 or more times based on slash or star or plus, right? And then you can have a question mark between once or none, right? Or you can also have like a slash W, right? 2, 4 question mark. So it's like, is this quantifier present once or not, right? Um, so pretty cool, right? Um, and then you can also have like these pipes. So pipes is like or you can have parentheses, which indicates a capturing group. Then square brackets, which is one of the characters in the bracket, right? Or a range, right? Like A to Z is a very common one. Or one character that is not something, right? So one character that is not X, right? and then start of the string or line. So this basically says the start must begin with this, or end of a string or line, right? Like a dollar sign. And these applications are really simple, right? Very useful for web scraping, for finding specific data points that we are interested in. So for example, like let's say we want to find all the email addresses, right? Or complete first and last names, right? Or for extracting data from large and complex data files, right? Even Wikipedia has a blacklist, right? And they use like regex to match to that blacklist, right? So before we go any further, I actually want to go to RegEx 101 and show you what this looks like, because you might be looking at this and be like, what is he talking about? This sounds insane, which is fair. So let's go to RegEx 101. Let's just Google that. There you go. So, all right. Before I go further, I actually want to tell you a fun story and tell you the practical use case of this. So when I interviewed for my current job, this was 5 years ago, of course, but what the rule was, or what the leak code problem was actually a problem where I had to use regex to actually get the solution. So basically I had to figure out if a word matched like a certain thing and like how many times it occurred and all those things, and regex was the solution. So, and this was before AI, I remember that. So I remember like using regex 101 and then typing the code, and it was a lot of fun. I remember doing all this, so this is pretty cool. But yeah, regex is very useful, right? Okay, so anyway, so here, actually, there is a quick reference. Let me see if I can pull this up. How can I expand this? Is there a way to? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so here you can actually see all of the characters, right? So one or more of, exactly 3 of, right? Any digit. So here, what we can do, for example, let's do /d, right? So in here, I could type like a zip code, right? So what's the College Park zip code? College Park zip code. Okay, no, 20740. Okay, cool. All right, and you can see it's valid, right? And now I can say, well, what if I want the zip code, right? And now if I type 56, right, that still works, but a zip code should only be 5 characters, right? So what we can do is we can do /d, and then here we can say exactly 3 of that. So here we can do 5. Right, so now that works. Now if I type 56, you'll see this is not valid anymore, right? So you can see the blue, can I zoom in a little bit? Yeah, let's do that, right? You can see the blue highlighting wore off, right? And now what you can also do is you can say, hey, like, is this the end of the string? So $sign here. No, sorry, $sign. And we can do a, this sign. Okay. Right, so now you can see what we're saying is this asserts the position at a start of a line, and this asserts the position at the end of a line. So now you can see I entered too many characters, so it's not valid. But now if I remove this, it's valid, right? So that's pretty cool, right? So you can do a lot of interesting things, right? And you could also say, you could have something like, for example, right? Let's say you don't want the person to enter special characters, right? So what you can do is something like this. A to Z, A to Z, right? And then 0 through 9, right? And so here what you can say is hi ABC, right? But now you can see I have a special character. So again, I'm going to put the this, and I'm going to put $sign. And you can see this is not valid. But if I did this, let's see, ABC, ABCA. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put the repeating. I need to have a repeating. So we can say 1 or more of, or 0 or more of. So let's do plus, which would be 1 or more of, plus. So then ABC. 1, 2, 3. H exclamation breaks it, HR 3 H, etc. Right? So that's pretty cool, right? So you can do all of these custom kind of things. You could even have capturing groups. So for example, like a zip code, right? Like a typical zip code will be something like, you could have an extended zip code, right? So you could have 2074-1234. I don't know what their actual zip code is, but you know what I mean, right? So here what you can do is you could say, okay, well, $, right? And here you can have, you need to have this. So we can have slash D5, right? Sorry, wrong slash. Slash D5, right? And we can see, look at that, 2074 is highlighted. And then I can put a $sign here, right? But here, because we have this hyphen, it's not right. So we can now have a optional, and do slash D4, right? And then say 0 or 1 of that. So you can do a question mark. And you can have a hyphen here too. Let's do a hyphen. There you go. So look at that. So that's pretty cool, right? So now what we're saying is, okay, well, what this is basically saying is the first 5 characters, right? And then optionally you can have a hyphen. So let's say I remove this. This still works, right? And this works too, right? And you can see that by the highlighter, right? So you have a match, right? So there's all these amazing things you can do with regex, which are so powerful because in our code, can do a lot of cool things with that, right? We can do a lot of validations, etc., right? Like a very common thing I've done in the past is like a blacklist, right? Or a deny list where we basically have like, you know, we have special characters denied, etc., right? And so you can do that with like the A to Z whatever, right? And you could also do like email validations, right? So you could have a set of like allowed, like you can have like an at required in it, right? And a .com or .net required, those kind of things, right? So there's a lot of cool things we can do. Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, so in Python, to do this, right, we use something called the RE module. Stands for regex, right? It's a module that provides regular expression matching operations. Now, there is one problem. In Python, the character / is used to escape special characters in regex. So that will escape strings. So this causes issues when using the / for any reason. So what we need to do is we would constantly need to use the double / such as // right? So the solution here is to use Python raw string notation for regex patterns, right? So backslashes are not handled in any special way in a string literal, right? So R quote /n is a 2-character string containing / and n. But then quote /n is a 1-character string containing a new line, right? So for regex strings, we always need that R, right? But anyway, that's a little confusing without an example. So let's hop right on over to VS Code, as I said, very short lecture, and do an example, and hopefully that starts to make more sense. All right, let's hop on over. All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to your favorite program, VS Code. All right, so let's hop right in. So what we're going to do is start by going to module 8, of course, opening it in our integrated terminal, and at the same time going ahead and creating a new file for it. So I'm going to go ahead and call it regexrunner.py. Okay, and of course we're going to start with our standard def main, right? Do a basic print to start, get rid of that later, and then if underscore name equals underscore main, right? And then run main. Perfect. All right. So now what we're going to do is first think about, okay, well, what do we want to do? Well, for regex, right? What might be cool is, let's say we have like a statement, maybe like a sentence, right? And we can take that sentence and then say, okay, well, from the sentence, go ahead and find me maybe like the zip codes, find me the phone numbers, find me stuff like that. So how are we going to be able to leverage regex and Python to be able to do that? Okay, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So the first thing I'm going to recommend is on your laptop, make sure to have your regex 101 pulled up, right? That is going to be the best way to test, hey, am I actually pulling the right things, right? And the other thing we're going to do is use something called the RE library, the regex library in Python. So let's just quickly look that up. So the Python regex library, and this is going to be very necessary, otherwise we won't be able to pull off what we want. And there's some docs. I actually really like the W3 Schools docs. They're much better. And so this regex library, basically we import this regex module, And what it does is it gives us a few functions. Now, the only ones that we're going to use are going to be the re.findAll, right? And the re.search, okay? Now, what is findAll? So findAll, right, as you can see, is basically a way to get a list containing all the matches. So we can see like the rain in Spain, find all AI, right? That's funny. AI. I don't think that was purposeful, but that's what it is. And then if you do re find all Portugal, you won't find anything. It's an empty list. And then there's a search function. The search basically searches the string and returns something called a match object, right? And basically what it does is it finds the first occurrence of something, right? So that's basically the primary thing. So if you look here, read.search/s, right? And then it'll say the first white space character, and it'll give you the match object, right? And a match object has like different properties. So the match object is a lot more like full-fledged. For example, it has basically like a span, right? So a tuple containing the start and end positions. It also has the string, and it has the group, right? So pretty cool, right? So there's a lot of cool things we can do. But for our primary thing, right, what we're going to do is use the find all function, right? That's going to be our primary use case, okay? And we'll be able to do everything we want to do with that. So anyway, let's hop right back into VS Code and go about getting started. So what we're going to do is first, I already have some text that I want to use as a reference point. So obviously in the canvas, you'll be able to find yours or find this on the file. So just go ahead, paste that, right? And so the first thing we're going to do is we're looking at the string, and you can see there's like zip codes, right? So 20742-1234, right? So what we're going to do is actually go ahead and, make something to go and find the zip codes. So how do we do that? So what we can do is type def find US zip codes and take in some text, right? And of course have some docs that indicate this. So we can say, something like find and return all US zip codes, even extended in a text, right? In a text, right? And here our input is going to be text, which is a string, str, which basically text to search for RegEx matches in, and then it returns. The return is a list, and it's going to be a list of all the identified matches in the string. Okay, right now, great. So here, what we're going to do is then go ahead and actually start by first thing, we need to import the re module. So that's going to be important. So at the top, import re. Great, now it's available to us. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and do something like pattern or regex pattern, right? And then we're going to equals, and then you remember, as we talked about in the lecture, you have to do r. So we do r quotes, right? So now we should talk about, okay, how do we actually go about returning this, right? So how do we actually go about returning this? So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to take this, right? And I'm going to go to our regex 101, and then we're going to talk about how do we actually do this. So our regex here, right? The first thing we're going to do is first we need a digit, right? So that's going to be our /d. So we'll do /d. Okay, and then we need it 5 times, right? Exactly to get this, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do till curly brace 5. Okay, and now you can see, great, we have the zip code, right? Which is great, right? But remember, this only gives us the first half of the zip code, right? What if we want also the second half? So how do we do that? Well, if we look at it, there is a hyphen and then 4 digits, right? So what we can do is we can have a hyphen, right? And then we can have a /d, and we can have a 4. Oh, sorry, wrong slash. Slash D, then a 4. Okay, and there you go. Look at that. So we have everything. But now I have a question. So let's say this was, instead of our main office is at zip this, and instead we only had this. Would this work? No, unfortunately. So what we want to do is have this to be optional, right? So we can add a optional here by putting this in parentheses. Okay, and then if we add dash 1, 2, 3, 4, right, that becomes a capturing group, right? Now, this capturing group is really important. You might not be able to see it. Okay, this capturing group is a really important concept because this capturing group is what Python uses to actually return values, right? So this capturing group is really important. Otherwise, if you don't have a capturing group, Python doesn't know to actually return that, right? So if you go back to here, and we go to, let's see, go to my find all method here, find it. Let me see if it has a specific find all, and we can say capturing. Yeah, so you can see it. Weird. Okay, they don't really have it, but this is it's not specified here, but Python will only return the capturing group, so it's very important, right? So what we can do is, I believe, so if we put this in parentheses, that becomes one capturing group. But actually what I want to do is I want to do this. So instead of this, right, what we'll do is we'll return these as a tuple. So we'll have 2 capturing groups. So we'll have one with the first part and then one with the extension, right? The extended zip code. So what we can do here is we can do as this, right? And this is not optional. So this has to have exactly 1, right? So we do exactly 1. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead, copy this, and go here, and put this here. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and just do return re.findAll, and then type the regex pattern, and then do text. Okay, so if you see here, it's first the pattern, then the string you want to check. Okay, so now all we have to do is go ahead, and what we're going to say is, well, let's just print the zip codes found. Print f quote zip codes found, right? And then do find US zip codes and do contact info text. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and just type Python 3 regex runner. Okay, now look at that. So now you can see here what happened is our zip codes found now returned a list of tuples. And our tuples was basically our first zip code and our extended zip code, right? So what would happen if I remove this? Let's see. So we're going to go here, remove this, and we can see here, look at that. So here we can see, because there's 2 capturing groups, but nothing was found for the second capturing group, the tuple was basically empty, right? But right, let's say, for example, I didn't have this at all, right? So let's get rid of this, right? Sorry, we don't need the question mark here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. Now look at this. Now it just returns a single capturing group, right? So that would be your zip code. But for now, we're going to keep this, right? So perfect. All right, so now let's take this a step further. So now let's copy this, and what we're going to do is use this. And instead of doing zip codes, we're going to do area codes. So find like area codes. So let's go area codes, right? And area codes are interesting, right? So area codes, right, is basically you need to have the full phone number to determine, hey, this is an area code, right? Otherwise, any 3 digits could be an area code, right? So let's go back to Chrome and go here. So here we're going to get rid of this. And now let's think. So area code is basically, based on this text, is 3 digits, a space, and then 3 digits hyphen 4 digits. And it's the first piece. So what we can do is do /d, right? 3 digits, right? And then /s, which stands for space, and then /d, 3 digits, and then -/d, 4 digits, right? And now we have the full phone number, right? But now, remember, we only want the area code, so we only need the first capturing group, which is here, right? And so now we can take this. Oh my gosh, what did I do? Okay, go here and go to VS Code. And here, find area codes and put this in. And make sure return all area codes in a text. Okay, perfect. And here we will just do this. And here we'll do find area codes. Area codes found. Return. And look at that. So 301410. Perfect. Right? And then let's say instead of area codes, we wanted to return the full phone number. Well, we could easily do that, right? We have all the logic. All we do is we remove the capturing group, and we basically say the whole thing is the capturing group. So this whole thing, right? So we'll just call this find phone numbers and return all phone numbers in a text. And then we'll just do this and do find phone numbers, right? And do phone numbers found. Perfect. And go ahead and look at that. That is so cool, right? So what we can see, we can do tuples, we can do regular strings, we can do a list of strings, all based on the capturing groups we return, right? So very cool. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do something a more complicated one. So maybe what we want to do is say, hey, in this, right, can we validate if there is any, can we validate if there are any special characters in this text, right? So how would we do that? So what we could do is basically go back to our Visual Studio, or sorry, our Chrome, and think about, okay, so we're looking here, what do we consider a special character, right? Maybe like a hyphen, right? So what we could do is we could have A to Z, then A through Z, then 0 through 9, right? So what is this saying? So if you look here, what this is saying is match a single character in the present set, which is in the brackets. And what we're saying is if it's A to Z lowercase, A to Z capital, or 0 to 9, it's basically, valid, right? And what we're saying is it can basically be a not. So what we can do is we can actually do this. So there is a way here. So here you can do a character not in the range. So what you can do here is you can put a little caret here, and you can see here any character not in this range. But now you can see there are spaces, right? Spaces are valid. So let's add a space, right? And dots are also valid, so that's a space dot. But now look at this. Hyphens are technically special characters. So now we're able to exactly find, okay, well, is there any hyphens? So what we're going to do is take this exact same work and go back to here. And basically, so def find say find if any special chars, and we say text colon, and for now I'm just going to copy this, but we will have to change this a little bit. Find and return return true or false if there are special characters in a text, and return will be boolean say true or false if special character. Okay, and so now we'll copy that regex pattern that we already have. So we'll take that, and what we'll do here is here, our re.findAll, right? We'll just say return um, re.findAll. We'll actually just do len, right? So we'll do, let's see if we can do this. We can do, let's see if we can do this. If re.findAll, then true, else false. Okay. So here, what we can do is print special chars are present in the text, colon, find if any special characters, text, or sorry, contact info text. Okay, and so let's run it and say, oh, right now it says none. If re.findAll, you know what? We should be able to do this. Oh, haha, I have to do a return. Very smart. I'm very stupid. Okay, return. Try again. Okay, so you can see special characters are present in the text true, right? But now let's say I allowed for hyphens, right? And then it should be false, right? So very easy, right? You can just do a quick check and you have everything, right? So very cool, right? So there's all these kind of fun things we can do, right? You could even do some complex checks where, you know, you check for if something has a pipe, right? So an or, right? You can do a or, right? So you can have a or. So look, I don't expect you to remember this off of the top, right? This is complicated, right? So with the lab, hopefully you'll see that, you know, we're trying to build, and you'll have to go to this website to try to figure out, okay, how do I actually parse these regexes and how do I do that? But that should be like, that's kind of the challenge, right? All right, so with that, that is all I had, and that is all I had for this week. So thank you all, and I will see you all in next week's lecture for the next two modules. And there's also one more thing. This week we have the final project being open, so just go ahead, take a look, and please go ahead and submit a proposal. You are going to be free to rework it near the end of the semester, or I guess in 2 weeks, really. If you see that there are things you can or can't do, but go ahead and take a stab and try to find a problem set at least. And of course, I'll work with you. I'll be personally grading those and reviewing those. So yeah. All right. Thank you all, and I will see you all next week.